is if you could please maybe tell us in the comments in the chat where you're tuning in from. I think something about like the virtual days for admitted students that's a little bit more exciting is that we're able to kind of have students tune in from around the world and around the country. So if you want to let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat, that'd be awesome. I'm currently tuning in from Williamsburg, Virginia. I am right here on campus. But all right, so it seems like we have just a couple of you for right now. But yeah, maybe then we can go ahead. I don't want to make us wait too long. And again, these lectures are going to be a little bit smaller. We wanted to make sure that we were giving students the opportunity to kind of really get to know those professors and kind of ask any questions that you guys all might have. And again, they'll be posted on the website afterwards as well. But again, my name is JD Nichols. I'm excited that you guys are joining us for our digital DFAST programming. With that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Professor Rivera-Santana to get started.
Oh, how's everyone? I'm tuning in from Williamsburg too. I'm in campus actually. Though my background is from the city of Mexico, in the museum of the National Anthropology Museum. There's this mural called Duality by Rufino Tamayo. And I'll just put it actually in the chat. So it's kind of wishful thinking that we could one point do some traveling, but definitely also do some study abroad, which is something that Hispanic studies and modern languages and literatures are kind of famous for. So my name is Carlos Rivera-Santana. I was, I guess, born in the Bronx, raised in Puerto Rico. Funny fact, I lived in Australia for 7 years. So that's not necessarily something that rolls out the tongue after saying I was from the Bronx and lived in Puerto Rico. So I did my PhD over in Australia and was a lecturer there as well. So I've been in William Mary for almost a year now. So I'm kind of a new professor, but I've taught already quite a few courses. Also, something that the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures have been doing and kind of instituting, and something that I also, and I know that William Mary has been working with as a whole, it's acknowledging its history, but also acknowledging the grounds on which the university stands on, and that before 1693, it was the lands of the Powhatan, the Chickahominy, the Pamunkey, the Monacan, and all the way to the Rappahannock First Nation territories. And I want to also acknowledge the traditional owners of their lands, the First Nations that I just mentioned, and the elders past and present. And the way that at least I've been working with indigenous cultures and indigenous studies is to have this acknowledgement be the, I guess, the starting point of an activity that's been going on for thousands of years in this country, okay, of knowledge making in this instance, but other activities as well. And it is quite normal to end indigenous protocols to start with that acknowledgement in order to start any kind of activity. So here in William Mary, I know that we're trying to do that. So I'm gonna share a PowerPoint quickly, but pretty much what we're gonna do today is have a little taste of my one of my classes, which is entitled Art and Decolonization, but this is a very quick introduction to visual analysis within the context of Latin American visual culture or Latin American art, and its relationship to anti-racist and anti-imperial and anti-colonial messages that the art is trying to display. So that's me, and that's the department I mentioned. I am in the program of Hispanic Studies, okay? So we are a part of the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures. We have about between 12 to 15 faculty members. And the degree in itself, it has a major and a minor, and we are related to many other minors and other majors. So you can do a double major or a major and a minor in Hispanic Studies. And it's not only a language program, okay? We don't limit ourselves to the traditional literature and language curriculum, okay? And we bet for that fluency is best gained when you take a look at a wide variety of cultural products, literature, film, popular culture, journalism, and art. This is where I come in. So the program also tries to make you, facilitate an immersion into Latin American, Spanish speaking, and even US Latino cultural production. And another very important element that we encourage in the program, and where you can do quite easily if you're majoring or minoring in it, is study abroad opportunities. So we have quite a few study abroad options in Argentina and Spain, in Guatemala, at the border of US and Mexico. I'm working on a study abroad program that would visit Puerto Rico, etc. Okay, so that's something to consider, and also where the kind of lecture is embedded in. So this lecture is pretty much a kind of a subset of the class that I'm teaching this semester, entitled Art and Colonization in Latin America, from colonial visual culture to decolonial aesthetics. So it's a second-year course. It's a course that it's about a specific topic. So here we're looking at the relationship between art and decolonial messages, and colonial history in Latin America and the Caribbean, of course. So, and this artwork is from Patrick McGrath Muniz, and he's a Puerto Rican artist, and is making a comment of climate change, colonialism, and post-hurricane effects, and the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico that happened in 2017. So, so that's the course, and we start from, I guess, understanding a little bit of the history of Latin America, from its immersion and from European cultures came into the Americas at large, and also acknowledging that before colonization, that is 1492 or around there was a rich body of peoples, of nations, and even Latin America, or the Americas as we know it today, had and has an indigenous name, and it's called Abya Yala. I'll write it in the. So the course makes quite like a point of making the, I guess, art as pertinent, not only in or relevant, not only in the context of the history, but in context of everyday culture and even economics. So, for instance, this artwork is by Basquiat, and this piece itself, which is untitled, 1982, is the artwork the American artwork that has been sold by the highest price in the history of the U.S. It was sold for $140 million. And Basquiat, who died, was half Haitian and half Puerto Rican. So there is this, and clearly he's making some comments about identity, racism, and colonial history. So we make a little bit of a review of what's important in terms of the different types of arts. And we go to muralism. This is a mural artwork that is currently in Palacio Nacional, the National Palace in the city of Mexico, painted by one of the most important muralists, Diego Rivera. So, and it's particularly important because Rivera and other muralists, Mexican muralists, tried from the 20s and the 30s to kind of provide an alternative history to the dominating history of Latin America, kind of praising Spanish colonizers and Spanish culture, and kind of shadowing or not putting enough importance to indigenous and more contemporary indigenous and peasant cultures in Latin America. So here, the history is not necessarily at that point in history books, but it's where painters like Diego Rivera wanted to paint it in the walls of the city, and that was the murals movement that still goes on today with a kind of flair between mural art and street art. Okay, so it's another piece, actually, this artwork, and some artworks by Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. They were part of an exhibition in the Whitney Museum, currently called Vida Americana, and how those artists, Mexican muralists, were influential to contemporary American artists, to the point of some artists like Jackson Pollock were trained by these Mexican and Latin American artists. Right to more contemporary artworks like Hernando Roche. So we do kind of a review, but also looking in depth the kind of potential meanings that these artworks are trying to convey, because that's the beauty of art, that whilst I cannot talk about, say, I don't know, a dinosaur about this artwork, that's not related to the Paleolithic age, but there's a group of possible interpretations in these artworks, because art and images at large can have a package of interpretations, okay? A set number of interpretations. So the main content for today is to look at a very introductory approach to visual analysis, or what is called semiotic analysis, literally the meanings of signs. So we'll just go over really quickly the basics of this visual analysis, and ideally you can do a visual analysis with me and with JD and whoever wants to join in. Okay, so the first element that should be considered when you look at any image, in this case an artwork, is the denotative consideration, or the denotative analysis. Anyone wants to read the what is said here in denotation? Who wants to read it? Quiet? Are we?
I can read it.
Okay.
I also volunteer.
Right.
The literal or manifest element of the text. What is subsequent interpretation?
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. It's literally what's there in the image. No, without any kind of interpretation. It's just a description of the main elements. Okay. And then the connotation, okay, is the actual interpretation of that denotative element that you've identified. So the denotative element could be a color, a object, a face, the eyes, a landscape, a tree, many things, okay? The connotative element is the meaning of that, say, color, for instance, that they, in the artwork, in the context of the artwork, okay? For instance, in this artwork, this duality by Rufino Tamayo, Quetzalcoatl, who is the an Aztec deity that is a representation of wisdom, has green, okay? And green has a particular sacred symbolism in Aztec culture, okay? It means something that is above the material or above the world, okay? Same with feathers. Feathers for many indigenous groups in the Americas particularly has a connotative symbol or meaning or interpretation of above materiality or reality. And then when you do identify a few denotative elements, and then the meanings of some of those denotative elements, okay, then you can see how they interact and how they, as a whole, can tell a message or many messages or narratives, okay? So we'll try to do this and these are a few questions that you can ask, but let's move into the practice. With this artwork, okay? Now, put attention because we will look at a few denotative elements if it's okay, okay? So this artwork, Los Tres Mulatos de Esmeralda, the three mulattos of Esmeralda, a place that today is Ecuador, painted by an indigenous artist, Adrián Sánchez Galque, in 1599. It's regarded to be one of the first paintings by European style on canvas in the history of the Americas, period. And it's one of the first representations of race in the Americas by Europeans, okay? It's representing 3 Afro-Indigenous leaders that controlled the area of Esmeralda, what today is Ecuador, Costa Rica, and Panama, and they held an empire of over 100,000 people. While the Spanish were very busy trying to wage wars against the Aztec Empire and then the Incan Empire, and further south, the middle of the area of the Americas was held by the first generation of Afro-Indigenous peoples. And this representation of the art in this artwork was painted to certify that these 3 leaders were in fact leaders, and they were granted titles by the Spanish king at that point, Charles V. So it was kind of this report, okay, back that these are the leaders of this area, of the area of Esmeralda, that pretty much was another empire that history doesn't necessarily fully acknowledge. So let me see if, so Jada and Shraddha, is that how it's pronounced? Let me see if they can engage.
That's correct.
Yes, thank you. And where are you speaking from?
I'm from Loudoun County.
Okay, cool. All right.
I'm from South Carolina.
Excellent. Very cool. Very cool. So I want to, maybe I'm just going to share a link in the chat. And I'm not sharing anymore now. I just want to share a link in the chat, and maybe, sorry. Can you please hit the link in the chat, and the artwork will open up. Okay, A1 did it. Jada and Shraddha.
Yep.
Excellent. So you see, you have the artwork. So,
Yes.
excellent. Thank you. So I'm gonna send you to a kind of breakout room, and could you please identify the about 5 denotative elements, like, and I'll put in the chat as well what denotation is of that artwork. Just be careful of jumping into interpretation, which is the connotative element. Okay, so identify 5 denotative elements, and then we'll come back and discuss them. Okay, that okay? All right.
Yeah.
I will put some. No, just. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Perfect. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to discuss the denotative elements that you identified from Los Mulatos de Esmeralda. Okay?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. You're in.
Yeah. Oops. This is very cool. I wish there were more people here. I'm sorry that the little.
That's
lower,
okay.
but-
This is how it is then. I like with the Zoom, I'm sure like you've seen varying attendance. So
Yeah, and what we've been really
to kind of continue with the interpretation. What other denotative element you identified?
They have some sort of weapon. It's like a spear.
Exactly, spears. Okay, and they're weapons, and they're being carried as a weapon, even. Okay, so the mannerism is like that. Okay, what else? We're just trying to kind of reach a point of saturation about the different things that we're noticing it.
The colors themselves are bright. Their clothing.
They're almost shiny, right?
Right.
Yeah, so there's a good work with color here for definitely a 1599 artwork. Okay, so they shine. There's some luminosity in the clothing. Okay, what else? One more. What other thing you identified as a
From what I can see, 2 out of the 3 are holding hats.
aha, very good. So 2 are holding hats, okay, and how they holding the hats, Jada?
They're presented forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one is on the back, and the other one is flipped. Okay, almost making a reference to some kind of movement. Okay, that happens. Okay, what about the eyes? Like hint, any artwork from pretty much the 14th century to the 17th century, the eyes are very important.
They are looking at the man in the center.
Mm-hmm. And the man at the center,
He's facing forward.
mm-hmm, looking at the viewer. Okay, very good. So, so those are the denotative elements. Okay, the connotative elements. Okay, let's start with what might mean, what the jewelry and the face might mean. Let's take a guess.
To me, it's a very obvious presentation of wealth to
Mm.
have that stand out so strongly.
Yes. So there is gold, literally, like there are gold. Okay, so there is this comment on wealth. Okay, very good. What else you can think about the connotative or the interpretation? Are they European? Do you think that no? Uh-huh.
Especially the clothing and the jewelry all together have a
Mhm.
very European resemblance, especially like the silky, luxurious material that they are wearing.
So the clothing is certainly European, and the jewelry not necessarily, right?
Right.
Okay, not necessarily. So remember, they are from Afro-Indigenous backgrounds. First generation of the mix between the indigenous groups of Esmeraldas and freed slaves from that traveled in the first voyages to the Americas. Okay, so there is no European blood represented here, and there must have been some kind of mixing of indigenous and African, in this case specifically Yoruba, that is this what today is Nigeria, intercultural exchange. Okay, what do you think the spears might mean?
I think they represent a sense of autonomy or power.
Mm,
They're in their hands and they look like they're about to use them.
it definitely represents arms and power. Okay, when you show your arms to say another authority, you show your arm as a representation of authority, but also of acknowledging the other person's authority. Okay, so when in the military, when people say present arms, you present your weapon, you present your hand, you present in any kind of weapon, even your sword, as a way of showing respect, okay, or showing or acknowledging authority, okay. So this artwork was aimed to be a portrait of acknowledging respect, but at the same time acknowledging the receipt of the titles of Dong from Charles V, the king of Spain at the time. And its intention was to almost virtually show this acceptance of the titles in a protocolary, customary way, still acknowledging their culture, okay, still acknowledging their leadership of pretty much the size of an empire, but receiving the titles in the protocolary way for which in castles and in audiences they're supposed to be received. Okay, so this is an acknowledgement, and this artwork, as you saw in the link, is in the Prado Museum in the city of Madrid in Spain. A testament of this representation of power of the first intercultural exchange that was not European in the Americas, as early as the painting was painted in 1599 after first century, but there was this intercultural exchange must have happened in the 1520s, in the 1530s, well before the establishment of the US as a nation, well before as many other establishments of nations. And here there was an Afro-Indigenous group that was leading other Afro-Indigenous nations in the middle of the Americas, okay? So that's kind of the power of interpreting art, not necessarily only to see specific messages from the artist, but also to kind of draw or write in this, or write or draw in this case, or paint a history, okay? So the art here in the context of the class, more than it being beautiful or being not beautiful, because a lot of art is not beautiful, it becomes a historical text, okay, for which in many of its messages can function as a counter history of mainstream canonical history that for whatever reason dominates the primary narratives of what we continue to be taught, and not only here in the US, but also in many other places of the world. So we have like 10 more minutes to have a few questions about admissions, about the class, about the program, or about whatever you're interested in. You're already admitted, so you should be really proud and really, excited. We should also say that ideally we're planning to do next semester completely in person, okay? This class, I should have said that it is hybrid. So I teach Mondays and Wednesdays in person and Fridays via Zoom. So William & Mary has many options that are not necessarily and would not necessarily be online, particularly next semester. So I've sent my email if you have any questions that you want to like ask, not necessarily here, but if you have any questions about the Life in William and Mary, the courses, what majors you're thinking about at this point, Shraddha and Jada?
I'm thinking about sociology and history, but also some type of concentration in Hispanic studies.
Cool, excellent, very good. I can see already that you fit really well. Okay, what about you, Jada?
I'm actually thinking about majoring in chemistry.
And what, sorry?
Chemistry.
Chemistry, awesome, very cool. All right, so that would be an amazing degree. And the cool thing also about William and Mary is that you will have many opportunities to take college courses or many electives, for which you can also do many kinds of study abroad programs, and have opportunities to mix it up a little in a way that you can also approach not only the sciences, but also the humanities. So, okay. Any questions before we declare this the end of the class?
I think I'm okay.
Okay. What about you, Yada?
I can't think of any right now.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So anything you want to add, JD, before we
Yeah, I don't think so. I was just going to say thank you both so much for attending. It was wonderful to kind of not only hear from Professor Rivera-Santana, but also hear from you two a little bit about what you were picking up on in the artwork. I know that it's been a while since I've been in class. I know that it's not the same for you, you two coming from high school, but it was really enjoyable for me to kind of dive back into this and get a sense of what classes are like in the Hispanic Studies department here at William and Mary. So thank you so much both for attending, and thank you to Professor Santana for giving the lecture. This was amazing. And yeah, please continue to tune in for the rest of our Digital DFAS and You Belong programming, and we look forward to seeing you both at future events.
I would add that thanks again as well. And if anyone's interested, there's actually this Friday, there will be a Indigenous contemporary photographer speaker in my class joining. So if you want to join, it's from 12 this Friday to 1:30. Feel free to send me an email so I can send it to you and you can hear the artist speak. That was another element of the class and of many of the programs that have we have the option of have invited speakers. So with that, thanks so much and welcome, kind of unofficially, but still. Okay, congrats.
Thank you so much. It was really great to hear from you today.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
have a good day.